On November 14, 1998, the members of the Tectonic Theater Project traveled to Laramie, Wyoming, and conducted interviews with the people of the town. During the next year, we would return to Laramie several times and conduct over 200 interviews. The play you're about to see is edited from these interviews, as well as from journal entries by members of the company and other found texts. Company member, Greg Barrett.
My first interview is with Detective Sergeant Hing of the Laramie Police Department. At the beginning of the interview, he was sitting behind his desk. And he was sitting, well, something like this. I was born and raised here. My family is third generation. My grandparents moved here in the early 1900s. We've had basically three, well, my daughter makes it fourth generation. Quite a while, it was a good place to live, you know? Good people, lots of space. Now, all the towns in southern Wyoming are so spaced out and laid apart because of the railroad came through. It was how far they could go without having to refuel and rewater. Laramie was a major stopping point. That's why the towns are so spaced apart. We were one of the largest states in the country and the least populated.
There is so much space between people and towns here. So much time for reflection.
Rebecca Hilliker, head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming.
I found that people here were nicer than in the Midwest, where I used to teach. Because they were happy. They were glad the sun was shining, and it shines a lot here.
What you have is you have your old-time traditional type ranchers that have been here forever. Laramie is the hub where they come for their supplies and stuff like that.
Stewardship is one thing all our ancestors taught us.
Eileen Engine, rancher.
If you don't take care of the land, you ruin it, and you lose your living. So you first of all have to take care of your land and do everything you can to improve it.
I love it here.
Doc O'Connor, limousine driver.
You couldn't put me back in that mess back east. Best thing about it's the climate. The wind, the cold. They say Wyoming wind will drive a man insane, but you know what? It don't bother me. Well, some of the time it bothers me, but most of the time it don't.
First, what you have is you have your university population.
I moved here after living in a couple of big cities.
Philip Dubois, the president of the University of Wyoming.
I loved it there, but you'd have to be out of your mind to let your kids out after dark. In here, in the summertime, my kids play out at night till 11 o'clock, and I don't think twice about it.
And then you have the people who live in Laramie, basically.
I moved here from rural Texas.
Zachy Solomon, Laramie resident.
Now, Laramie, if you don't know a person, you'll definitely know someone they know. So it can only be 1 degree removed at most. And for me, I love it. I mean, I love to go to the grocery store because I get to visit with 4 or 5 or 6 people every time I go. And I don't really mind people know my business, because what's my business? I mean, my business is basically good.
I like the trains too. They don't bother me. Well, some of the time they bother me, but most of the time they don't. Even though one goes by every 13 minutes back where I live.
Doc actually lives up in Boston, but everyone in Laramie knows him. He's also not really a doctor.
They used to carry cattle. Them trains. Now all they carry is diapers and cars.
I grew up in Cody, Wyoming. April Silva, a university student. Laramie's better than where I grew up. I'll give it that.
It's a good place to live, you know? Good people, lots of space. Now, when the incident happened with that boy, I remember it brought a lot of press people here. There was even one time where they followed me out to the actual crime scene, and, well, it was a beautiful day out, you know? Absolutely gorgeous day. The sky was that blue, you know, you'll never be able to paint it, that kind of blue. And, you know, the mountains in the background had a little bit of snow on them, and, well, I remember this one reporter, lady person, she came up to me, and she said,
Well, who found the boy? And who is out here anyway?
and I told her, well, this is a really popular destination for running and biking, and horseback rides a big thing out here. It's close to town. And, well, she looked at me and she said,
Who the hell would want to run out here?
and I'm thinking, lady, you're just missing the point, okay? All you have to do is just look at it, okay? See the birds, smell the air, take in what's around you. I didn't feel judged, I just felt that they were stupid. She was missing the point. They were missing the whole point.
It's hard to talk about Laramie now, to tell you what Laramie is for us.
Jedediah Schultz.
If you had asked me before, I would have told you. Laramie is a beautiful town. Secluded enough that everyone have their own sense of identity, but connected. Everybody knows everybody. It's a personality that most larger cities are stripped of. Now, after Matthew, I'd say we're a town defined by an accident or a crowd. We've become Waco, become Jasper. We're a noun, a definition, a sign. We may be able to get past that, but it'll sure take a while.
Journal entries. Members of the company, Andy Paris.
Moises called, saying he had an idea for his next theater project, but there was a somberness to his voice. So I asked him what it was all about, and he said he wanted to do a piece on what's going on in Wyoming.
Stephen Belber.
Lee told me the company was thinking of going out to Laramie to conduct interviews, and that they wanted me to come, but I'm hesitant. You know, I have no real interest in prying into a town's unraveling.
Amanda Gronich. I've never done anything like this in my life. How do you get people to talk to you? What do you ask?
Moises Kaufman.
The company has agreed that we should go to Laramie for a week and interview people. I'm not sure how I feel about taking 10 people in a trip of this nature. Have to make some safety rules. Nobody works alone. Everyone carries cell phones. Have made some preliminary contacts with Rebecca Hilliker, the head of the theater department of the University of Wyoming. She's hosting a party for us our first night in town and has promised to introduce us to possible interviewees.
I must tell you that when I first heard that you were thinking of coming here, when you called me, I wanted to say that you had just kicked me in the stomach. Why were you doing this to me? And I thought, that's stupid. You're not doing this to me. More importantly, I thought about it and decided that we have had so much negative closure in this whole thing. And the students really need to talk. When this happened, they started talking about it, and media descended and all dialogue stopped. You know, I really love my students because they're all free thinkers. You may not like what they have to say, and you may not like their opinions because they can be very redneck. But they're honest, and they are truthful, so there's an excitement here, and there's a dynamic here that I never had when I was in the Midwest or in North Dakota. Because there was so much Puritanism that dictated how people looked at the world, that a lot of the time, they didn't have an opinion. You couldn't get them to express an opinion. And quite honestly, I'd rather have an opinion that I didn't like and have that dynamic in education. There's a student I think you should talk to. His name is Jedediah Schultz.
I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. My family's been in Wyoming for generations. Now when it came time to go to college, my parents couldn't afford to send me. I wanted to study theater, and I knew the only way I was going to get in was on a scholarship. So they had this Wyoming State high school competition, right? And I knew that if I didn't get first place in the duets, that I wasn't going to get in. So I went to the theater department at the university. I talked to one of the professors, and I'm like, I need a killer scene. And he turned to me, and he said, here you go, this is it. And it was Angels in America. So I read it, and I knew that if I did a good enough job that I could win that scene. So when the time came, I told my parents so they could come see me in the competition. Now, you have to understand something. My parents would go to everything. Every ball game, every hockey game, everything I've ever done. So they brought me into their room, and they told me that if I did that scene, that they weren't going to come see me because they believed that it's wrong, that homosexuality is wrong. They believed so strongly that they weren't going to come see their son do what was probably the most important thing in his life. And I didn't know what to do. No, I had never, ever gone against my parents' wishes before. So I was nervous. But I decided to do it. And all I remember from the competition was getting up there with my scene partner, shaking his hand, and there was a standing ovation. Oh man, it was amazing. And going for a scene, I got best place, and that's how I can afford to be here at this college, because of that scene. And my parents weren't there. And you know, thinking back on it, I think, well, why did I do it, you know? Because I'm not gay, so like, why did I do it? And I guess the only honest answer is, I wanted to win. It was such a good scene. It was like the best scene. Do you know Mr. Kushner? Maybe you could tell him.
Company member Greg Parati.
We arrived today in the Denver airport and drove to Laramie. And the second we crossed the Wyoming border, I swear I saw a herd of buffalo. But you know, I also thought it was weird that the Wyoming sign said
Wyoming, like no place on earth.
instead of Wyoming, like no place else on earth.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
I stopped at a local inn for a bite to eat, and my waitress said to me,
Hi, my name is Debbie. I was born in 1954, and everyone knows a big then. So yes, there are a lot of us around. But I promise I won't slap you if you leave your elbows on the table.
Today, the company tried to explain to me, to no avail, what chicken fried steak was.
Now, are you from Wyoming? Or are you just passing through?
we're just passing through.
Company member Barbara Pitts.
We arrived in Laramie tonight, just past the Welcome to Laramie sign. Population, 26,687. First thing to greet us was Walmart. In the dark, we could be on any main drag in America. Fast food chains, gas stations. But as we drove into the downtown area by the railroad tracks, the buildings still look like a turn-of-the-century Western town. Oh, and as we passed the university in, on the sign were amenities such as heated port, cable TV are usually touted. It said, hate is not a Laramie value.
Greg Parati.
I met today with two longtime Laramie residents, Allison Mears and Marge Moret. Two social service workers who taught me a thing or two.
Well, what Laramie used to be like when Marge was growing up was mostly rural.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it, you know. My kids all had horses.
I mean, there was more land. You could keep your pet cow, your horse, your little chickens. You know, just have your little bit of acreage.
Yeah, I could run around the house on my all-togethers, do the housework while my kids were in school, and nobody could see me. And if they got that close,
Now then, that's their problem.
yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got the expression right. You said in your all-togethers?
Well, yeah, honey. While we're closed.
Now, how's he gonna use that in his play?
Okay. So this was a big ranching town.
Oh, no, not just ranching. This was a big railroad town at one time before they moved everything to Cheyenne, Green River, and Omaha. Well, now it's just a drive-through spot for the railroad. Well, what was it, even in the 50s? I mean, they had one big roundhouse, and they had such a shop they could build a complete engine.
They did, my mom worked there.
Your mom worked in a roundhouse?
Yep, she washed engines. Her name was Minnie. We used to sing that song for her, you know that song.
What song?
Run for the roundhouse, Minnie, they can't corner you there.
But I tell you, Wyoming is bad in terms of jobs. I mean, the university has this big high whoop-de-doo jobs. But Wyoming, unless you're professional, well, the bulk of people work in minimum wage jobs.
Yeah, I've been either in the service industry or bartending most of my life. Now I know everybody in town.
And she does.
And I do. Now that I tell you, here in Laramie there's a difference, and there always has been. What it is class distinction. It's about the well-educated and the ones that are not. And the educated don't understand why the ones that are not don't get educated. That's why I told you before, my kids had a fight because their mother was a bartender. Never mind. I was the best damn bartender in town.
And she was.
That's not right. That's fact.
But here in Laramie, if it weren't for the university, we'd be SOL.
What's SOL?
Well, do I have to say it? Well, it's shit out of luck. Oh, Lordy, you've got that on tape. Boy, you are getting an education today.
I guess I am. So, what was your response when this incident happened with Matthew Shepard?
Well, I've been close enough to the case to know many of the people. I have a daughter that's on the sheriff's department. As far as the gay issue, I don't give a damn one way or the other as long as they don't bother me. And even if they did, I just say, no thank you. And that's the attitude of most of the Laramie population. They might poke one if they were in a bar situation, you know. They've been drinking, they might actually smack one in the mouth, but then they would just walk away. Most of them said they would just say, I don't swing that way, and whistle on about their business. Laramie is live and let live.
Well, I'd say that Marge probably knows a lot more than she's even willing to say. And we have to respect her for that.
Well, where are you going with this story?
We haven't decided yet, but when we're done here, we're going to bring it back around to Laramie.
Okay, then. The parts I'll go tell you.
Company member, Andy Paris.
Today, for the first time, I met someone who actually knew Matthew Shepard. Trish Steiger, owner of a shop in town, actually referred to him as Matt.
Matt used to come by my shop. That's how I knew him.
It was the first time I heard him referred to as Matt instead of Matthew. Did he go by Matt to everyone?
Well, on the 2nd of October, I got a phone call. About 10 after 7?
Doc O'Connor.
It was Matthew Shepard, and he goes, can you pick me up at the corner of 3rd and Grand? So anyhow, I pull up to the corner to see who Matthew is, you know? It was a small guy, 5'2", soaking wet. I bet you 97 pounds tops. They say he weighed 110 in the newspapers, but I wouldn't believe it. They also say this guy measured about 5'5", when truly he was only about 5'3" or 5'2". So anyhow, I pull up to the window. I'm gonna try to go in steps so you can better understand this man's principle. He pulls up to the window and I go, are you Matthew Shepard? And he's like, yes, I'm Matthew Shepard, but I don't want you to call me Matthew or Mr. Shepard. I don't want you to call me anything. My name is Matt, and I want to let you know that I am gay and we are going to a gay bar. Do you have an issue with that? And I said, how are you paying? I mean, the matter of fact is, there are no gay bars in Laramie. Neither is in Wyoming. So this guy was paying me to take him all the way to Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour away. Matt was a blunt little shit. He always was. But I liked him, you know? Because he was straightforward. You see what I'm saying? Maybe gay, but straightforward. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know, you know. How does any one person ever really tell about another? You should really talk to my sister Romaine. She was a close friend of Matthew's.
We never call him Matthew, actually. Most of the time we just call him Choo-Choo, you know, because we used to call him Matthew and then we just called him Choo-Choo. And whenever I think of Matthew, I always think of his incredible beaming smile. I mean, he walked in and he'd be like, you know, he'd smile at everyone. It just made you feel great. And he would like stare people down in the coffee shop because he always wanted to sit at the end of the seat so that he could talk to me while I was working. And if someone was sitting on that seat, he would just sit there and stare at them until they left. And then he would claim his spot. But Matthew definitely had a political side to him. I mean, he really wanted to get into political affairs. That's all his big interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. That's the only TV station I ever saw his TV turned into. He was just really smart in political affairs, but not too smart in like common sense things. So he moved to Laramie to go to school.
Matthew was very shy when he first came in.
This is John Peacock, Matthew Shepard's academic advisor.
To the point of being somewhat mousy, I'd almost say. He was having some difficulties adjusting, but this was home for him. And he made that quite clear, so his mousiness, his shyness, it gave way to a person who was excited about this track that he was going to embark on. He was just figuring out wanting to work on human rights, how he was going to do that. And when that happens, this person begins to bloom a little bit. He was starting to say, wow, there are opportunities here. There are things I can do in this world. I can be important.
I did hear from Matthew about 48 hours before his attack, and he told me that he joined the gay and lesbian group on campus, and he said he was enjoying it. You know, getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot. I mean, he was totally stoked about going to school. Yeah, he was really happy about being there.
And in retrospect, and I can only say this in retrospect, of course, I think that's where he was heading, towards human rights, which only adds to the irony and tragedy of this.
My understanding when I first came here
Catherine Connolly.
was that I was the first out lesbian or gay faculty member on campus. And that was in 1992, so it wasn't that long ago. I was asked in my interview what my husband did, so I came out then. Do you want to hear a funny story? When you first get here, there's all these things you have to do as a new faculty member, and so I was in my office and I noticed that this woman had called. And I was expecting, you know, it's a health insurance phone call, something like that. And so I called her back, and I can hear her. She's working on her keyboard, clicking away, and so I say, you know, this is Catherine Connolly, returning your phone call. And she says, oh, it's you. And now I'm thinking, well, this is bizarre. And then she says, well, I hear you're gay. And I was like, uh-huh. And so she says, well, I hear you came as a couple. Well, I'm one too. Not a couple, just a person. And so she was a kind of lesbian that knew I was coming and wanted to come over and meet me immediately. Later, she told me that there were other lesbians she knew that wouldn't be seen with me. That I would irreparably taint them. That just being seen with me could be a problem.
When I came here, I knew it was going to be hard as a gay man.
Jonas Slonaker.
But I kept telling myself, people should live where they want to live. And there would be times I would go down to Denver and go to gay bars, and people would ask me where I was from, and I'd say, Laramie, Laramie. I met so many men down there from Laramie. So many gay men were from here, and they're like, this is not a place where I can live. How could you live there? I had to get out, grr. But every once in a while, there'd be a guy. I miss Laramie. I mean, I looked at there. That's where I want to live. And they get this star-eyed look, and I'm like, listen, if that's where you want to live, do it. I mean, imagine the more gay people staying in small towns. But it's easier said than done, of course.
Today, we are moving from our motel and heading for a Best Western.
Moises Kaufman.
My hope is that it is a better Western.
Amanda Gronich.
Today we divided up to go to different churches in the community. Moises and I were given a Baptist church. We were welcomed into the services by the Reverend himself, standing at the entrance of the chapel. This is what I remember of his sermon that morning.
My dear brothers and sisters, I'm here today to bring you the word of the Lord. There is a simple truth that I tell my colleagues, and I'm going to share it with you today. The word is either sufficient or it is not. Now, scientists tell me that human history, that the world is 5 billion or 6 billion years old. After all, what's a billion years going to take? The Bible tells me that human history is 6,000 years old. The word is either sufficient or it is not.
The sociology of religion in the West.
Stephen B. Johnson, Unitarian minister.
The dominant religious traditions in this town, Baptist, Mormon, they are everywhere. I mean, it's just not Salt Lake, you know. They're all over. They're like jam on toast out here.
Now, the Mormon church has a little different thing going on that irritates some folks.
Doug Laws, state ecclesiastical leader for the Mormon Church.
And that is that we absolutely believe that God still speaks to man. We don't think that it happened and some folks wrote it down in the Bible. God speaks to us today, and we believe that. We believe that the prophet of the church has the authority to receive inspiration and revelation from God.
So, the spectrum would be on the left side of that panel. So far left that I am probably sitting by myself is me, and the Unitarian Church. The Unitarians are, by and large, humanists, many of whom are atheists. I mean, we're not even sure we're a religion. And to my right on the spectrum, now to his credit, Father Roger, a Catholic priest who is well-established here, and God bless him, he did not equivocate at all when this happened. He hosted the vigil for Matthew that night.
I was really jolted, when we did the vigil, because we wanted to get other ministers involved, and we called some of them, but they were not going to be involved. They were all like, we're just going to wait and see which way the wind is blowing. That angered me immensely. I mean, we're supposed to stand out as leaders. And I thought, wow, what is going on here?
Now, God has set boundaries, and one of our responsibilities is to learn. What is it that God wants? So you study your scriptures, you look to your leaders, and after a while, you get to know what the bounds are. Now, once you sort of got to know what the bounds are, then you kind of get an idea of what's out of bounds. There was a proclamation that came out on the family. A family is defined as one woman and one man and children. That's a family. That's about as clear as I can state it. There is no room for sexual deviation in the Mormon Church. No leniency. Well, we just think that that's out of bounds.
I warn you, you will be mocked. You will be ridiculed for the singularity of your faith. You let the Bible guide you. It's in there. It's all in there.
The Christian pastors, many of the conservative ones, were silent on this. Conservative Christians use the Bible to show the rest of the world. It says here in the Bible, and most Americans, they do, believe that the Bible is the Word of God. And how are you going to fight that?
I am a biblicist, which means the Bible does not need me to be true. The Bible is true whether I believe it or not. The Word is either sufficient or it is not.
I arrived in Laramie on September 15th. I looked around, tumbleweed, cement factory, and said, what in the hell am I doing in Wyoming? 3 weeks later, I found out what the hell I'm doing in Wyoming. This morning I had breakfast with a university student named Zubaida Ullah. She's an Islamic feminist who likes to do things her own way.
I've lived in Laramie since I was 4. Yeah, my parents are from Bangladesh. 2 years ago, because I'm Muslim, I decided to start wearing a scarf. That's really changed my life here in Laramie. Yeah, like, people say things to me like, why do you wear that thing on your head? Like when I go to the grocery store. I'm not looking to give people Islam 101. So I'll be like, well, it's part of their religion. And they'll be like, and this is the worst part, because they'll be like, no, it's part of your religion, but why? And it's, how am I supposed to go into the whole doctrine of physical modesty and my own spiritual relationship with the Lord, standing there with my pop and chips? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's so unreal to me that, yeah, that a group from New York would be writing a play about Laramie. And then I was picturing it like, you're gonna be in a play about my town. You're gonna be on stage in New York, and you're going to be acting like you're us. That's so weird.
Hello?
your husband's church on Sunday, and I was extremely interested in speaking with him about some of his thoughts about recent events.
Well, I don't think he'll want to talk to you. He has very biblical views on homosexuality. He doesn't condone with that type of violence, but he doesn't condone with that type of lifestyle. You know what I mean? And he's just been bombarded with the press after all this happened, and the media's just been terrible about this whole thing.
Oh, I know. I really understand. It must have just been terrible.
Oh, yes, I think we're all just hoping it'll go away.
Well, do you think maybe I could call back and speak with your husband just briefly?
Well, all right. You can call back tonight at 9 o'clock.
Thank you so much. I'll do that.
Today, Barbara and I went to the Fireside Bar, which was the last place Matthew was seen in public.
The Fireside definitely feels like a college bar, with a couple of pool tables and a stage area for karaoke night. Still, the few regulars in the late afternoon were hardly the college crowd.
First person we talked to was Matt Nicholson, the owner.
My great-great-grandfather moved here in 1862. He owned Laramie's first opera house. It was called Old Blue Front. And in 1870, my Louisa Grandma Swain cast the first woman's ballot in any free election in the world, and that's why Wyoming's called the Equality State. So what I want to do is reestablish my bar business into Old Blue Front Opera House and Good Time Emporium. You know, I want to have a pool hall, I want to have a gift shop, I want to have a restaurant, and do all this shit. You know, every night's ladies' night. So the Fireside's the first step towards Old Blue Front Opera House and Good Time Emporium.
So, what about the night Matthew Shepard was here?
We had karaoke that night. There is about 20 to 30 people here. Matthew came in, sat about right where you're sitting, just hanging out. I mean, if you want to speak to someone, you got to speak to Matt Galloway. His character stands for itself, and you got to meet him. Oh. Hey, is Galloway bartending tonight?
Okay, I'm gonna make this brief, quick, and get it over with. But it'll be everything. Factual, just the facts. Okay, here we go. 10 o'clock, usual nights, I clock in, usual time. 10:30, Matthew Shepard shows up. He sits down and he orders a Heineken.
Phil LeBray, friend of Matthew Shepard.
Matt likes Heineken, nothing else. Heineken, even though you have to pay $9.50 for a six-pack, he'd always buy the same beer.
So what can I tell you about Matt? If I had 100 customers like him, it'd be the most perfect bar I've ever been in. Okay, and nothing to do with sexual orientation or absolute mannerisms, manners, politeness, or intelligence. Taking care of me, as in tips. Well, everything. He dressed nice, clean cut, some people you just know. Okay, he sits down, you know, please, thank you, he offers intellect within the vocabulary. So he just kicks it there, you know? Didn't seem to have any worries or like he was waiting for anyone. Just sat down and enjoyed the company around. Now, I want to say it was approximately 11:45, 11:30, 11:45. Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson walk in. I didn't know their names at the time, but they're the accused. They're the perps. They're the accused. They walk up to the bar very stone-faced, you know, dirty, grungy, rude, gimme, that type of thing. They walk up to the bar and, well, as you know, paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters, which, I mean, that is something you don't forget. I mean, $5.50 in dimes and quarters, that's a freaking nightmare. Now, Henderson and McKinney, they didn't seem intoxicated at all. They just took their beer with them back to the pool room. Now, I want to say it was approximately 30 minutes later that I saw them walking around no beer. And, you know, I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to ask them if they want another one, because obviously they just paid for one with dimes and quarters, so I have a pretty good feeling they don't have any more money.
Romaine Patterson.
Money meant nothing to Matthew because he came from a lot of it. And he would like hand over his wallet in 2 seconds because money meant nothing. His shoes might have meant something. They can say it was a robbery. I don't buy it. For even an iota of a second.
Then a few moments later, I looked over and saw that Aaron and Russell had been talking to Matthew Shepard.
Aaron said a guy walked up to him and told him he was gay, And he got aggravated with it, so we told him he was straight and didn't want anything to do with him, and he walked away. He said that's when him and Russ went to the bathroom and decided they were to pretend to be gay so they could get him into the truck and rob him.
Okay, no. They stated that Matt approached them, that he came on to them, okay? And I absolutely positively disbelieve and refute that statement 100%. Refute it. I'm gonna give you 2 reasons why. 1, character reference. Why would he approach them? Why them? He didn't approach anyone else that night. They say he was gay, he was a flaming gay, but he's gonna come on to people like that? Bullshit. He never came on to me. Hello? He's gonna come on to people like that? I don't believe it. 2, territorialism is the word I'm gonna use for this. And that's the fact that Matt was sitting right there. Aaron and Russ were back in the pool room. Upon their first interaction, they came over to Matt's area. The area Matt had been seen sitting all night, so who approached who by that?
But Matthew was the kind of person, like, he would never not talk to someone for any reason. If someone started talking to him, he'd just be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. He never had any problem striking up a conversation with anybody.
That did feel lonely a lot of times, and me knowing that and knowing how gullible Matt could be, he would have walked right into it. The fact that he was alone at the bar without any of his friends made him that much more vulnerable.
And well, this is what I'm testifying to because, well, as you know, I'm like the key eyewitness in this whole case. Basically what I'm testifying to is that I saw Matthew Shepard leave. I saw 2 individuals leave with him. I didn't see their faces, but I saw the back of their heads. At the same time, Aaron and Russ were no longer in the bar, so you do the math.
Actually, I think the DJ was the last person to speak to him on his way out that night. He gave him a cigarette or something. His name is Shadow.
I was the last person that Matt talked to before he left the fireside. I was just bullshitting around with my shit, and he stopped me. I stopped him, actually. He's like, hey, Shadow, da-da-da. And I'm like, what, man? You getting ready to leave? He's like, yeah, man, and this and that. But then I noticed some 2 guys, and they stood out there. And you could see it. They stood out there, and they would look over at Matt, and Matt would look over at them. And I stood and talked to Matt for like a good 10 minutes, you know? And you see the guys with them. You see them like, you know, like worried, you know, like anxious to leave and shit. So when they took off, I seen it. When they took off. It was a black truck. It was a small truck. The 3 of them sat in the front seat with Matt in the middle. And I didn't think none of it, you know? I didn't figure them guys was gonna be like that.
A friend of Aaron McKinney.
Oh, I've known Aaron for a long time. Aaron was a good kid. I liked Aaron a lot. That's why I'm so shocked when I heard about this. I'm like, I know he was living out far, in a trailer house is what he told me, with his girl. They just started dating last summer, and they must have gotten pregnant as soon as they started dating, you know, because they had a kid. He was only 21 years old, running around with a kid. You see, that's the kind of person Aaron was, just like, he was always dressed in like big clothes, like Tommy Hilfiger and Polo, Gucci. At the time I knew him, he was just a kid trying to, you know, he just wanted to fit in. Acting tough, acting cool. You know, you could get in his face about it and he'd back down like he was some kind of scared kid.
Sherry Amundsen.
Russell was just so sweet. He was the one who was the Eagle Scout. I mean, his whole presence was just quiet and sweet. So of course it doesn't make sense to me, and I know people snap and whatever, and like, it wasn't a real intimate relationship. I was just his landlord. I did work with him at the chalk wagon too, and I remember like at the Christmas party, he was just totally drunk, out of his mind. Like we all were, pretty much just party time. And he wasn't belligerent. He didn't change. His personality didn't change. He was still the same little McRussell. I remember him coming up to me and saying, when you get a chance, Cherry, can I have a dance? Which we never did get around to doing that, but
Now, I just want to shake him, you know? What were you thinking? What in the hell were you thinking?
The fence. I've been out there 4 times. I've taken visitors. And that place has become a pilgrimage site. And clearly that's a very powerful personal experience to go out there. It is so stark and so empty, and you can't help but think of backing there for 18 hours in nearly freezing temperatures with that view up there isolated, and the God, my God, why have you forsaken me? Comes to mind.
Company member Greg Parati.
Phil Labrie, a friend of Matthew's, took us to the fence this morning, and I broke down the minute I touched it. I feel such a strong kinship with this young man. On the way back, I made sure that no one saw me crying.
Lee Fondakowski.
Greg was crying on the way back. I couldn't bring myself to tears, but I felt the same way. I have an interview this afternoon with Aaron Kreifels. He's the boy that found Matthew out there at the fence. I don't think I'm up for it right now. I'll see if someone else can do it.
Well, I took off on my bike about 5 p.m. Wednesday from my dorm. I just kind of felt like going for a ride, So I went to the top of Cactus Canyon, and I'm not super familiar with the area, so on my way back down, I had no idea where I was going, sort of just picking and choosing as I went along, which now makes me think that God wanted me to find him, because there was no way I was going that way. So I was in some deep-ass sand, and I wanted to turn around, but something just kept me going. And there was this rock on the ground, and I just completely drilled it. I went right over the handlebars and ended up on the ground. So I got up and I was dusting myself off a bit, and I was looking around, and that's when I noticed something, which ended up being Matt. He was laying over there by the fence, and I just thought it was a scarecrow. I was like, Halloween's coming up, probably some sort of Halloween gag, so I didn't think much of it when I saw him. So I got my bike and I was walking along the fence. It's a buck-type fence. And as I got closer, that's when I noticed his hair. And that was a major key to noticing it was a real human being, was his hair, because up to that point, I still thought it was a dummy. Seriously, I even saw his chest going up and down. I thought it was some sort of mechanism, but when I saw his hair, that's when I knew it was a real human being. So I ran to the nearest house as fast as I could and called the police.
And I responded to the call.
Officer Reggie Flutie.
And when I got there, the only thing I could see was partially somebody's feet. So I got out of my vehicle and raced over. I had seen what appeared to be a young man, 13, 14 years old, because he was so tiny. He was laying near the bottom end of a pole. I did the best I could. The gentleman that was laying on the ground, Matthew Shepard, he was covered in dry blood all over his head. There was dry blood underneath him, and he was barely breathing. And he was doing the best he could, and I tried to breathe for him. I couldn't get his mouth to open. His mouth wouldn't open for me. And he was covered in, like I said, partially dry blood and blood all over his head. And the only place where he did not have any blood on his face is what appeared to be where he had been crying down his face. And, his head was distorted. It did not look normal. He looked as though as if he had a real harsh head wound.
I was working in the emergency room the night Matthew Shepard was brought in. I don't think any of us can remember seeing a patient in that condition for a very long time. Those of us who have worked in big city hospitals have seen this, but well, we have some people here who have not worked in a big city hospital. And it's just not the kind of thing you expect around here. You expect it. You expect to see this kind of thing from a car going down a hill at 80 miles an hour. You expect to see these gross kind of injuries from something like that. This terrible thing. But you don't expect to see this from someone doing this to another person. The ambulance report said it was a beating, so we knew.
There was nothing I could have done. I mean, if there was anything I could have done, I would have done it, but there was nothing. I was just standing there, screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to get something out of him, like, hey, wake up, hello, but he didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't anything.
He was tied to the fence. His hands were thumbs out in what we call a cuffing position, you know, the way we handcuff people. And he was tied with a real thin white rope that went around the bottom of the pole about 4 inches up off the ground. His shoes were missing, and he was tied extremely tight, so I used my boot knife and I tried to slip it in between the rope and his wrist, and yeah, I had to be extremely careful not to harm Matthew any further.
Well, your first thought is, well, it's certainly like to think that it's someone from out of town who's come through and beat someone. I mean, things like this happen, shit happens, and it happens in Laramie. But if there's been someone who has been beaten repeatedly, well, certainly that is something that offends us. Yeah, I think that's a good word for it. It offends us.
He was bound so tight, and I finally got my knife through there, and I'm sorry. We rolled him onto his left side, and when we did that, he quit breathing. So immediately I put him back on his back, and that seemed to be enough of an adjustment, and that gave me enough room to cut him free there. And I'd seen the EMS unit trying to get to the location. And once the ambulance got there, we put him in a neck collar, placed him on a backboard, and scooted him from underneath the fence. And then Rob drove the ambulance over to the Abington Hospital's emergency room.
Now, the strange thing is, 20 minutes before Matthew Shepard came in, Aaron McKinney was brought in by his girlfriend. Now, I guess he had gotten into a fight later that night back in town. So there I am, working on Aaron, and the ambulance comes in with Matthew. Now, at this point, I don't know there's a connection at all. So I tell Aaron to wait a minute, and I go and treat Matthew. So there's Aaron in one room of the ER, and then Matthew in another room 2 doors down. Now, as soon as we saw Matthew, it was clear that his care was beyond our capabilities. So I called the neurosurgeon at Poudre Valley, and he was on the road in an hour and 15, I think.
And they showed me a picture. Days later, they showed me a picture of Matthew. I would have never recognized him.
Now, 2 days later, I found out the connection, and I was very struck, because these were 2 kids. They were both my patients, and they were 2 kids. I took care of both of them, of their bodies. And for a brief moment, I wondered if this is how God feels when he looks down at us. I mean, we're all his children. Our bodies, our souls. And I felt a great deal of compassion for both of them.
This is John Peacock, Matthew's academic advisor.
The news reports started trickling out on Thursday, but no names were mentioned. The brutality of the crime was not mentioned. All that was mentioned was that there was a man, a Laramie man, found beaten out on the prairie, basically. Later on in the evening, they mentioned his name. It was like, that's not the Matthew Shepard I know. That's not my student. That's not this person who I've been meeting with.
I was in the coffee shop,
Romaine Patterson.
and someone pulled me aside and said, I don't know much, but they say that there's been a young man who's been beaten in Laramie. They say his name was Matthew Shepard. And he said, do you think this could be our Matthew? And I said, well, yeah. Sounds like it could be our Matthew. So I called up my sister Trish and I said, tell me what you know. I'm just like, I need to know anything you know because I don't know anything.
So I'm on the phone with my sister, and that's when the whole story came up on Channel 5 News. And it was just like, boom.
And the news reports kept rolling in. Young university student, his age, his description, he was like, oh my God.
And I instantly felt sick to my stomach. Just so sick to my stomach. And I had to tell Romaine. Yes, it was Matthew. It was your friend.
Well, I'll tell you what's overwhelming.
Matt Galloway.
Friday morning, I first found out about it. I go to class and I walked out, and boom, there it was in the branding iron. So immediately, I drove my car to the nearest newsstand to buy a Laramie boomerang, because, you know, I want more information. So I buy that, and I go home, and before I can even open up the paper, my boss calls me, and he says,
Did you hear about what happened?
I'm like, yeah.
Well, was he in the bar Tuesday night?
I'm like, yes. Yes, he was.
You've got to get down to the bar right now. We've got to talk about this. We've got to discuss on what's going to go on.
By this time, I was starting to get upset, but still, the severity was not out yet.
It was Thursday afternoon.
Rulon Stacy at Poudre Valley Hospital.
I got a call. We just got a kid in from Wyoming, and it looks like he may be a victim of a hate crime. We got a couple of newspaper reporters here asking questions, and so we agreed that we needed one spokesperson. As CEO, I'll do that, and we'll try to gather all the information that we can.
And then I watched the 10 o'clock news that night when they started speaking about the nature and the seriousness of it.
So I'm on the phone with Nicholson, and he's like,
We got to go to the arraignment so that we can identify these guys and make sure these guys were in the bar.
So we go to the arraignment.
Our focus today turns Laramie, Wyoming, and the Allegheny County Courthouse, where Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson are being charged for the brutal beating of Matthew Shepard, a Yale University, Wyoming student.
The arraignment was on Friday. It was right around lunchtime. I said, I'm just going, and I just took off. It's just down the street, so I walked a few blocks and I went. Has anybody told you about the arraignment? There were probably about 100 people from town, and just as many news media by that point. A lot more of the details had started to come out. The fact that the perpetrators were kids, local kids, that everyone from around here had some sort of relationship to. And I think everyone was really waiting on pins and needles for what would happen when the perpetrators walked in. And what happened? There's probably 200 people in the room at this point, and they walk in their complete orange jumpsuits, and their shackles, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was incredibly solemn. I mean, several people were teary at this point. And then the judge does a reading. It's a reading of the evidence that the prosecution has, and it's just a statement of facts. And the reading of the facts was,
The essential facts are that the defendants, Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson, met Matthew Shepard at Fireside Bar. And after Mr. Shepard confided he was gay, the subjects deceived Mr. Shepard into leaving with them in their vehicle to a remote area. Once arrived at said area, the defendants tied the victim to a buck fence, robbed him, tortured him, and beat him. Both defendants were later contacted by the officers of the Laramie Police Department, who observed inside the cab of their pickup a credit card and a pair of black patent leather shoes belonging to the victim, Matthew Shepard.
I don't think there was a single person left in that courtroom who wasn't crying by the end of it.
the shoes.
I mean, it went on for 5 minutes, and it kept on getting more and more horrific, ending with
Said defendants left the victim begging for his life.
Sergeant Haig.
How could this happen? I don't think people really understand it. I don't even understand how someone could do something like that. We have one of the most vocal populations of gay people in the state. It's pretty much live and let live.
Laramie resident Jeffrey Lockwood.
My secret hope was that they were from somewhere else. That then, of course, you can create that distance. We don't grow children like that here. Well, it's pretty clear that we do grow children like that here.
So that was the arraignment, and my reaction was pretty catatonic. Not sleeping, not eating. Don't leave me alone right now.
More and more details came out about the sheer brutality, motivations, how this happened. And quite frankly, the media descended, and there is no time to reflect on it anymore.
We're here today.
Laramie, Wyoming, often called the Gem City of the Plains, is now the eye of the storm. The cowboy state has the next level for sure, but there are no more bigots per capita than there are in New York, Arizona, or Minnesota. The difference is in Wyoming there are few.
People would like to think that what happened to Matthew was an exception to the rule, but really it was an extreme version of what happens in our schools on a daily basis.
It's a tough business, as Matt Shepard knew, and as all his friends know to be gay in cowboy country.
It was huge. Yeah, it was herds. I'm talking hundreds of reporters, which makes a huge dent in this town's population. Reporters everywhere, news trucks everywhere on campus, everywhere in town. We're not used to that type of attention to begin with. We're not used to that type of exposure.
Tiffany Edwards, local reporter.
These people are predators. Like this one journalist actually caught one of the judges in the bathroom at the urinal and was like asking him questions. And the judge was like, "Excuse me, can I please have some privacy?" And the journalist was like offended that he asked for privacy. I mean, this is not how journalism started. Like the Gutenberg Press, you know?
I'll tell you what, when the hard copy can be taped to me, I take them right back at the exact same time. So if they ever try to do anything funny, they better watch their fucking ass.
Wyoming Governor Jim Duringer, reporter from Republican up for re-election.
I am outraged and sickened by the heinous crimes committed to Matthew Shepard. I would like to extend my most heartfelt sympathies to the family.
Governor, you haven't pushed any hate crime legislation in the past.
I would like to urge the people of Wyoming against overreacting in a way that could give one group special rights over others. We will wait and see whether the vicious beating and torture of Matthew Shepard was motivated by hate.
Wait, Governor, wait.
You've got the beginning of the news story, where they've got murder in Wyoming, and Wyoming's dripping red like it's got blood in it or something, and well, it's sensationalism. We're here going, wait a minute, get those guys in jail in less than a day? I think that's pretty damn good.
And for us to be more or less maligned,
Eileen, Gil, and Gil.
that we're not a good community, and we are. The majority of people here are good people.
You get bad apples once in a while, and I think that the gay community took this as an advantage. Said this was a good time for us to exploit this.
Bill McKinney, father running the accused.
Had this been a heterosexual, these two boys decided to take out Rob, it would have never made national news. Now, my son is guilty before he's even had a trial.
Look, I do think that the media actually made people accountable because they made people think. Because people were sitting in their homes, like watching TV and listening to CNN and watching Dan Rather and going, Jesus Christ, well, that's not how it is here. Well, how is it here?
Matthew Shepard, medical update at 3 p.m. Saturday, October 10th.
But at this point, I looked out there, and where there had been 2 or 3 reporters, it must have been 10 or 15 still photographers, another 20 or 30 reporters, and 10 video cameras. The parents had just arrived, and I had barely introduced myself to them, and I looked out there and I thought, my gosh, what am I going to do? Matthew Shepard was admitted in critical condition at approximately 9:15 p.m. October 7th. When he arrived, he was unresponsive and breathing support was being provided. Matthew's major injuries upon arrival consisted of hypothermia and a fracture from behind his head to just in front of the right ear. This has caused bleeding in the brain as well as pressure on the brain. And there were also several lacerations on his head, face, and neck. Matthew's temperature has fluctuated over the past 24 hours, ranging from 98 to 106 degrees. We have had some difficulty controlling his temperature. Matthew's parents arrived at 7 p.m. October 9th and are now at his bedside. The following statement is from them. First of all, we would like to thank the American public for their kind thoughts and fond wishes for Matthew's speedy recovery. We appreciate the prayers and goodwill and know that they are something that Matthew would appreciate too. We also have a special request for the members of the media. Matthew is in very much need of his family at this time, and we ask that you respect our privacy as well as Matthew's so that we can concentrate all of our efforts, thoughts, and love on our son. Thank you very much.
Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson both pled not guilty to charges. Their girlfriends, Chastity Pasley and Kristen Price, also pled not guilty. They're being charged as accessories after the fact. On our next trip to Laramie, we spoke with the chief investigating officer on the case, Detective Rob Debris of the Albany County Sheriff's Department.
I guess the thing that bothered me the most was when I went down to Poudre Valley, where Matthew was. And the thing that bothered me the most was seeing him, touching him. As a homicide detective, you look at bodies. This poor boy is sitting here, fighting all his life, trying to make it. I wanted it so bad in the book, you know.
I just keep seeing that picture in my head from when I found him.
Aaron Kreifels.
And it's not pleasant whatsoever. I don't want it to be there. I want to, like, get it out. The biggest part for me is seeing the picture in my head, and it's kind of unbelievable, you know, that I happen to be the person to find it, because the biggest question for me, especially with my religion, is why did God want me to find him?
I know how to take care of myself, and I was irrationally terrified.
Catherine Connolly.
So what this means is not letting my 12-year-old son walk the streets. Seeing a pickup truck do a U-turn and thinking it's coming after me. Having to stop because I'm shaking so bad. And in fact, the pickup truck wasn't coming after me, but my reaction was to have my heart in my mouth.
Ultimately, no matter how you dice it, I did have an opportunity.
Matt Galloway.
You know, if I had an amazing hindsight of 2020 to have stopped what occurred, and I keep thinking, you know, man, I should have noticed. You know, I shouldn't have had my head down for those 20 seconds when I was doing the dishes or whatever. Things I could have done. What the hell was I thinking?
So you do a lot of studying. You spend hours and hours and hours. You study and study and study, talking to the officers, making sure they understand, talking to the witnesses again, and always coming back to, I'm getting this flash of seeing Matthew. I wanted it so tight that there was no way they were going to get out of this.
One of the things that happened when I got to the fence
Reggie Flutie.
There was just such an overwhelming amount of blood, and we tried to wear protective gloves, but we had a real cheap sheriff at the time, and he gave us shit gloves. And so, you know, you're putting them on, and they just kept breaking. So finally, you just ran out of gloves. And so you figure, you know, don't hesitate. You know, that's what you tell yourself all the time. Don't hesitate. So you try to keep moving, and you try to help Matthew, and you try to find an airway, and that's what you do, you know?
The thing I wasn't telling you before is that Rach is my daughter.
Marge Murray.
And when she first told me she wanted to be a police officer, well, I thought there was no better choice for her. She could handle whatever came her way.
Probably a day and a half later, the hospital called me and told me Matthew had HIV. And the doctor said, you've been exposed. And you've had bad exposure. Because, you see, I've been building a lean-to for my llamas. I had a bunch of open cuts on my hands, and so I was kind of screwed. So I thought, oh shoot, you know.
Would you like to talk about losing sleep?
So I said to the doctor, okay, what do I do? He said, get up here. So I got up there and we started the ATZ drugs immediately.
Now, they told me that's a medication that if administered 36 hours after you've been exposed, it can maybe stop you from getting the disease.
And that's mean, nasty medicine. Mean. I've lost 10 pounds and a lot of my hair. Yeah.
And quite frankly, I wanted to lash out at someone. Not at Matthew. Please understand that. Not one of us is mad at Matthew. But we maybe wanted to squeeze McKinney's head off. And I think about Henderson and how two absolutely human beings can cause so much grief for so many people. It has been terrible for my whole family, but mostly for her and her kids.
Yeah, I am. I think it brought home to my girls what their mom does for a living.
Well, Reggie, you know what I'm gonna tell you now?
God, my parents. They both said the same damn thing.
You're quitting this damn job.
And it's just a parent thing. You know, and they're terribly proud of you whether you're handling a drunk or you're handling a case like this, and they just don't want you getting hurt.
Like I said, there's a right way, a wrong way, and then there's Reggie's way.
So finally I said, oh, for God's sake, lighten up, Francis.
You are so stubborn.
You see, they tell me I'm stubborn, and I don't believe them. I just figured, you know, I've heard your opinion, so now here's mine. I'm 39 years old. You know, what are they going to do, spank me?
Reggie, don't give me any ideas.
They look pretty funny, too. You know, what can they say?
I just hope she doesn't go before me. I just couldn't handle that.
University of Wyoming President Philip DuBois.
Well, this is the young person who read my statement on the Denver Post story and sent me an email to me directly and said,
you and the straight people of Laramie and Wyoming are guilty of the beating of Matthew Shepard. Just as the Germans who look the other way are guilty of the deaths of the Jews, gypsies, and the homosexuals. You have taught your straight children to hate their gay and lesbian brothers and sisters. Unless and until you acknowledge that Matt Shepard's beating isn't just a random occurrence, isn't just the work of a couple of random crazies, you have Matthew's blood on your hands.
and I just can't begin to tell you what that does to you. And it's like, you can't possibly know what I was thinking. You can't possibly know what this has done to me, my family, and my community.
That first week alone, vigils for Matthew Shepard were held in Laramie, Denver, Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs. Soon after, in Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Nashville, Minneapolis, and Portland, Maine, among others. In Los Angeles, 5,000 people gathered, and in New York City, a political rally ended in civil disobedience and hundreds of arrests. And the Poudre Valley Hospital website received close to 1 million visitors from across the country and around the world, all expressing hope for Matthew's recovery.
Matthew Shepard medical update at 9 a.m. Sunday, October 11th.
As of 9 a.m. today, Matthew Shepard remains in critical condition. The family continues to emphasize that the media respect their privacy. The family would also like to thank the American public for their kind thoughts and concern for Matthew.
There are certain things when I'm sitting in church.
Jedediah Schultz.
And the Reverend will tell you flat out that he doesn't agree with homosexuality. And I don't know, I think I just don't know enough about certain things to make a decision that says homosexuality is right. You know, when you've been raised your whole life that it's wrong, and right now I'd say that I don't agree with it. Yeah, I don't agree with it, but maybe that's just because I can do it, and you know, I think religiously speaking, that's not how God intended it to happen, but I don't hate them or anything. I'm not going to persecute them. That's not going to be getting between me and the other person at all.
Well, it's preached in schools that being gay is okay and yada, yada, yada.
Conrad Miller.
If my kids ask me, well, I'd sit them down and I'd say, this is what gay people do, okay? This is what animals do. And I'd say, this is the life, this is the lifestyle, this is what they do. Then I would tell them, this is why I believe that it's wrong.
There are more gay people around than you think.
Murdoch.
It don't bother anybody because most of them that are gay or lesbian, they know damn well who to talk to. If you step out of line, you're asking for it. Now some people are saying he made a pass at them. You don't pick up regular people. I'm not excusing their actions, but it made me feel better because it was partially Matthew Shepard's fault and partially the guys who did it, you know. Maybe it's 50-50.
Yes, as a lesbian, I was more concerned for my safety.
Zachy Salmon.
And I think we all were. I think it's because somewhere inside we all know what could happen to us any time, you know? I mean, I would be afraid to walk down the street and display any sort of physical affection for my partner. You don't do that here in Laramie.
Well, there's this whole idea. You leave me alone, I leave you alone.
Jonas Slonaker.
And it's even on some of the Western literature, you know. Live and let live. Oh, that is such crap. I tell my friends that sometimes. Even my gay friends bring it up sometimes. I'm like, that is such crap. I mean, basically what it boils down to is that if I don't tell you the fact, you won't beat the crap out of me. I mean, what's so great about that? That's a great philosophy.
We went to the candle vigil.
Zubaida Ula.
And it felt so good to be with people who felt like shit. I kept telling myself, like, I don't deserve to feel this bad, you know? And then somebody got up there and he said, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, I'm saying it wrong, but basically he said, come on guys, to show the world that Laramie is not this kind of town. But it is this kind of town. If it wasn't this kind of town, why did this happen here? I mean, you know what I mean, like, that's a lie. Because it happened here. So how could it not be a town where this kind of thing happens, you know? It's just totally, like looking at an Escher painting and getting all confused. Like, it's just totally circular logic. Like, how can you even say that? And we have to mourn this. We have to be sad that we live in a town, a state, a country, where shit like this still happens. I mean, these are people trying to distance themselves from a crime. And we need to own this crime, I feel. Everyone needs to own it. We are like this. We are like this. We're like this.
I was at the Fireside Bar one afternoon, and I ran into two friends of Aaron McKinney, Shannon and Jen. You knew Aaron well, right?
Yeah, we both did. When I first found out about it, I thought it was really, really awful. And I don't know if Aaron was fucked up or coming down or what, but Matthew had money. Shit, he had better clothes than I did. Matthew was a little rich bitch.
You shouldn't call him a rich bitch, though. That's not right.
Well, I'm not saying he's a bad guy either. I mean, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, said the wrong things, and I don't know. I won't lie. There were a couple times where I was all messed up on meth, where I thought about going on robbing. I mean, I never did, but it was there. It's easy money.
Aaron's done that thing before. They've both done it. I know one night they went to Cheyenne to go do it, and they came back with probably $300. I don't know if they ever chose, like, gay people as their particular targets before, but anyone that looked like they had a lot of money, and that was, you know, they could outnumber or overpower, was fair game.
Do you think that there was any homophobia at all involved in this that contributed to some of it?
Probably. It probably would have pissed him off that Matthew was gay, because he didn't like the gay people that I've seen him interact with. He was fine as long as they didn't hit on him, you know, as long as they didn't come up.
As long as they weren't coming on to him.
Do you get the impression that he knew other gay people?
I'm sure he knew other gay people. I mean, he worked up at the KFC, and I know a couple people up there that are, yeah. And I'm not saying I have a problem with it or anything. I don't know. Half the people up here in Laramie I know are gay.
What would you guys say to Aaron if you saw him right now?
Well, first of all, I'd ask if you do any more tweak.
If I saw Aaron now, I'd be like, man, why do you fuck up like that? But I'd want to make sure he's doing good in there. But I'm sure he is, though. I'd probably just want to, like, hang out with him.
Smoke a bowl with him?
I bet he wants one so bad.
You guys both went to Laramie High.
Yeah. Can't you tell? We're the product of our own society.
On a day that is traditionally given to nothing more profound than collegiate exuberance and fortunes of the Wyoming University football team, this community on its high plains had a different kind of homecoming Saturday, as many searched their souls in the wake of a vicious apparent anti-gay hate crime.
University President Philip Dubois.
Well, this was homecoming weekend. There were a lot of people in town, and the homecoming parade was scheduled. And the students had organized to tag onto the back, you know, behind the banner supporting Matt. And everybody else was wearing the armbands that the students had created.
I live in the center of town.
Harry Woods.
And my apartment has windows on two opposite streets. One goes north and one goes south, and that's exactly the homecoming parade route. Now, on the day of the parade, I had a cast in my leg because of a fall. So I was very disappointed because I really wanted to walk with people that are marching for Matthew, but I couldn't, so I watched my window, and it was just, I'm 52 years old and I'm gay. See, I've lived here for many years and I've seen a lot. So I was very moved when I saw the tag at the end of the homecoming parade. About 100 people were walking behind the banner for Matthew Shepard. So then the parade went down the block to make a U-turn, and I went to the other side of my apartment to watch it come south down the street.
I was right up front where they were holding the banner for Matthew, and let me tell you, I've never had so many goosebumps in my life. It's amazing. Families, mothers, massive people holding their 6-year-old kids and tying these armbands around them and explaining to them why they should be wearing these armbands. It was absolutely one of the most beautiful things I've ever done in my life.
Well, about 10 minutes went by, and sure enough, the parade started coming down the street. And then I noticed the most incredible thing. As the parade started coming down the street, the number of people walking for Matthew grew 5 times. There were at least 500 people walking for Matthew. 500 people. Can you imagine? The tag at the end was larger than the entire parade, and people kept joining in, and, you know, I started to cry. Tears were streaming down my face, and I thought, thank God I get to see this in my lifetime. And my second thought was, thank you, Matthew.
all that involved, per se. Look, my husband's a highway patrolman. That's really the only way that I've known about it. Now, when I first found out, I just thought it was horrible. I can't. Nobody deserves that. I don't care who you are. But the other thing that was not brought out, at the same time that happened, that patrolman was killed. And there was nothing. Nothing. They didn't say anything about the old man that killed him. He was driving down the road and he shouldn't have been driving and killed him. It was just a little piece of paper. And we lost one of our guys. You know, my husband worked with this man. He was brand new on the force. But I mean, here's one of ours. And it's just a little piece of paper. And a lot of it is my feeling that the media is portraying Matthew Shepard as a saint, making him as a martyr. I don't think he was. I don't think he was that pure. Now, I didn't know him, but there's just so many things about him that I found out that it's scary. You hear about his character, spreading AIDS, and a few other things. You know, being the kind of person that he was. Well, he was just a barfly, you know? And I think he pushed himself around. I think he flaunted it. Everybody's got problems. Why they exemplified him, I don't know. What's the difference if you're gay? A hate crime is a hate crime. If you murder somebody, you hate them. Has nothing to do with if you're gay or a prostitute or whatever. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
This is one of the last days on our second trip to Laramie. Greg and I have been conducting interviews non-stop, and we are exhausted.
We had to meet Father Roger at 7:30 in the morning. I was hoping that we could skip it all together, but we have to stick through to the end. So here we go. 7:30 a.m., 2 queers and a Catholic priest.
Matthew Shepard has served us well. Do you realize that? He has served us well. And I do not mean to condemn Matthew to perfection, but I cannot mention to you anyone else who has done as much for this community as Matthew Shepard. And I'm not going to sit here and say I was just a bold guy. No fear. I was scared. I was really vocal in this community when this happened. And I thought, you know, should we call the bishop and ask him for permission to do the vigil? But then I thought, hell no, I'm not going to do that. His permission doesn't make it correct. And I'm not knocking bishops, but what is correct is correct. You people are just here on a search though, so I will do this. I will trust that if you run a play of this, that you say it right, say it correct. I think you have a responsibility to say it right. Don't make matters worse. You think violence is what they did to Matthew? They did do violence to Matthew. But do you realize that every time you're called a fag, or you're called a les, or whatever.
Or a dyke.
Or a dyke, yes. Do you realize that is violence? That is the seed of violence. And I would resent it immensely if you used anything I said to somehow cultivate that kind of behavior. I would resent it immensely, and I think you need to know that.
Thank you, Father, for saying that.
Just deal with what is true. You know what is true. You have a responsibility to say it correct.
Hello?
Reverend,
Yes, hello.
I believe your wife told you a bit about why I'm contacting you.
Yes, she did, and let me just say, I don't know that I really feel like talking about any of this incident with anyone. You see, I'm somewhat involved, and I just don't know.
Yes, I completely understand, and I don't blame you. You know, I went to your service on Sunday.
You went to the services on Sunday?
Yes, I did.
On Sunday?
Yes, this past Sunday.
Did I meet you?
Yes, you welcomed me at the beginning, I believe.
I see. Well, let me tell you, I'm not afraid to be controversial or to speak my mind, and that is not necessarily the views of my congregation per se. Now, as I said, I am somewhat involved, that the people in the case, well, the girlfriend of one of the accused is a member of our congregation, and one of the accused has visited. Now, we've been after those two I mentioned for ages, trying to get them to live right, to do right. Now one boy's on suicide watch, and I'm working with him until they put him in the chair and turn on the juice. I will work towards his salvation. I think they deserve the death penalty. I'll try to deal with them spiritually.
Right. I understand.
Now, as for the victim, I understand that kind of lifestyle is legal, but I will tell you one thing. I hope that Matthew Shepard, while he was up there on that fence, he had a chance to look back on the time when someone had spoken the word of the Lord to him, and that before he slipped into a coma, he had a chance to reflect on his lesson.
Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate your speaking with me.
About 11:30 that night, I had just barely gone to bed, and Margot, our chief operating officer, called and said his blood pressure has started to drop. Well, let's wait and see. She called me about 10 after. He just died. So I quick got dressed and came into the ICU where the family was. And Judy came up and she put her arms around me, and I put my arms around her, and we just stood there, honestly, for about 10 minutes, just because what else do you do? And then we had to sit and talk about things that you just... Dennis, it's now public knowledge, and I'm gonna go out there and tell the whole world that this has happened. Because by this point, we knew it was the world. It was the whole world. And so Judy told me what she wanted me to say, and I went out at 4 o'clock a.m.
Matthew Shepard, medical update, 4:30 a.m., Monday, October 12th.
At 12 midnight, Monday, October 12th, Matthew Shepard's blood pressure began to drop. We immediately notified the family, who were already at the hospital. At 12:53 a.m., Matthew Shepard died. The family were at his bedside. The family did release the following statement. The family again asked me to express their sincerest gratitude to the entire world for the overwhelming response for their son. The family was grateful that they did not have to make a decision regarding whether or not to continue life support for their son. Like a good son, he was carrying until the end and removed any guilt or stress from the family. He came into the world premature, and he left the world premature. Matthew's mother said, Go home and give your kids a hug. And don't let a day go by without telling them you love them. And I don't know how I let that happen. I lost it on national television. But, you know, we had been up for 72 hours straight, and we had gone home and gone to bed for half an hour, and we had to get up and come in, and maybe I was just waiting. I don't know. But in a moment of complete brain deadness, while I was out there reading that statement, I thought about my own 4 daughters. And go home and give your kids a hug. And she doesn't have her kid anymore. And so from there, I'm thinking, this is so lame. And we started getting people sending us emails and letters. You know, most of them were just generally very kind. But I did get this one guy, he wrote me, he said, do you cry like a baby on TV for all of your patients or just the faggots? And as I've told you before, homosexuality is not a lifestyle with which I agree. But having been thrown into this, I guess I didn't understand the magnitude with which some people hate. And as for the rest of the letters, you know, there were maybe 2 or 3 that were like that. Most of them were, thank you for your caring and compassion. Matthew had caring and compassion. From the moment he got here. I spoke with Doc the other day and told him we would soon be coming back out for the upcoming trials of Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney. And this is what he had to say.
I'll tell you what, if they put those 2 boys to death, that would go against everything Matt would be thinking about on them. Because he would not want those 2 to die. He'd want to leave them with hope. H-O-P-E. Just like the whole world hoped that Matthew would survive. The whole thing, you see, it all surrounds around hope. H-O-P-E.
The day of the funeral, it was snowing so bad. I mean, big, huge, wet snowflakes. When I got there, there were thousands of people dressed in all black with umbrellas everywhere. And there were 2 churches. One for the immediate family, invited guests, people of that nature, and one for anyone else who wanted to be there. And then still, there were hundreds of people that couldn't fit to either of the churches. And there was a park across the street. That's where these people were. This park was full.
The liturgy today is an Easter liturgy. It finds its meaning in the resurrection. The service invites your full participation. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray.
And I guess it was like the worst storm that they have had.
Tiffany Edwards.
Like that anybody could ever tell. Like trees fell down and the power went off for a couple of days because of it. And I just thought, it's like the forces of the universe at work, you know? Whatever higher spirits you know is like that blows storms, was blowing the storm.
For our brother Matthew, let us pray to the Lord Jesus Christ, who said, I am the resurrection and the life. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Lord, you who consoled Martha and Mary in their distress, draw near to us who mourn for Matthew and dry the tears of those who weep. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You wept at the grave of Lazarus, your friend, comfort us in our sorrows. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You raise the dead to life, give to our brother eternal life. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You promised paradise to the thief who repented. Bring to our brother the joys of heaven. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
He was nourished with your body and blood. Grant him a place at the table in your heavenly kingdom. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Comfort us in our sorrows at the death of our brother. Let our faith be our consolation and eternal life our hope. We pray to the Lord.
My most striking memory from the funeral
Harry Drake, Casper Star Tribute.
is seeing the Reverend Fred Phelps from Kansas. That scene go up in the park.
Do you believe the Bible? Do you believe that he is supposed to separate the precious from the vile? You don't believe in that part of the Bible? You stand there, ignorant to the fact that the Bible, 2 times for every verse, it talks about God's love, it talks about God's hate.
A bunch of high school kids who got out early came over and started yelling at some of these people in the protest, the Fred Phelps people. Well, across the street you had people lining up for the funeral. Well, there was this one guy, this skinhead dressed in leather and spikes everywhere. And he came over to where the protest was, and he walked over into the crowd, and I just thought, oh, this is going to be a really ugly situation. But instead, he came over, and he started leading them in amazing grace.
Amazing grace.
You know, we wouldn't be here if this was just another murder that the state was going to deal with. The state deals with hundreds of murders every single day, but this murder is different because the fags are bringing us out here trying to make Matthew Shepard into the poster boy for the gay lifestyle. Yeah. We're going to answer it. It's just that simple.
Months later, we returned to Laramie for the trial of Russell Anderson, first of the 2 perpetrators. This would be a capital murder trial. Before we got to the Laramie County Courthouse, Fred Phelps was already there.
You don't like that attribute of God!
But so was Romaine Patterson.
That perfect of attribute of God, but we love that attribute of God. We're going to preach it. Because God's hatred is pure. It's determination. It's a determination that is going to send some folk to hell. That's God's hate.
After seeing Fred Phelps protesting him at his funeral and finding out that he was coming to Laramie for the trial of Russell Henderson, I decided that someone needed to stand toe to toe with this guy and show the differences. And I think at times like this, when we're talking about hatred as much as the nation is right now, that someone needs to show that there is a better way of dealing with this kind of hatred. So, our idea is to dress up like angels. And so, we have designed an angel outfit. For our wings are huge. They're like big ass wings. And there'll be 10 to 20 of us. They're angels. And what we're gonna do is, we're gonna encircle Phelps. And because of our big wings, we're gonna completely block him. So, this big ass band of angels come in. We don't say a fucking word. We just turn our backs on him and we stand there. And we are a group of people bringing forth a message of peace and love and compassion. Yeah, this 21-year-old little lesbian is ready to walk the line with them.
When those old preachers laid their hands on me, that's called an ordination. And then they deliver a charge. Mine was from Isaiah 58:1. Cry aloud, spare not. Lift up thy voice like a trumpet and show my people their transgressions.
And I knew my angels were gonna have to take the brunt of everything we had to yell and say. I mean, we were gonna be blocking his view and he was going to be pissed off to all hell. So, I went out and bought all my angels' earplugs.
Romaine Patterson's sister, Trish Steiger.
As soon as they started jury selection, everybody was coming to my shop with, I don't want to be on this trial. I hope they don't call me. Or, oh my God, I've been called. How do I get off? Just wanted to as far away from it as they could. Very fearful that they would have to be a part of that jury. I heard that Henderson had to sit in the courtroom while they questioned prospective jurors. And one of the questions they asked was, would you be willing to put this person to death? I understand most of the comments were, yes, I would.
Yes, I would, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Can you imagine hearing that?
Yes, sir.
Juror after
Yep.
juror after juror?
You entered a not guilty plea earlier, Mr. Henderson, but understand if you wish to change that plea today. Is this correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand, Mr. Henderson, that the recommended sentence here is 2 life sentences?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that those may run concurrently or they may run consecutively?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Henderson, I will now ask you how you wish to plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Before the court decides whether the sentence will be concurrent or consecutive, I understand that there are some statements to be made by at least one individual.
This is an excerpt from a statement made to the court by Lucy Thompson.
As the grandmother and the person who raised Russell, along with my family, we have written the following statement. Our hearts ache for the pain and suffering that the Shepherds have went through. We have prayed for your family since the very beginning. Many times throughout the day, I have thought about Matt, and you will continue to be in our thoughts and prayers. We know that your pain will never go away. You have shown such mercy in allowing us to have this plea, and we are so grateful that you're giving us all the opportunity to live. Your Honor, we, as a family, hope that as you sentence Russell, that you will do it concurrently, 2 life terms. For the Russell we know and love, we humbly plead, Your Honor, not to take Russell completely out of our lives forever.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you have the constitutional right to make a statement if you would like to do so. Do you have anything you would like to say?
Yes, I would, Your Honor. Mr. and Mrs. Shepard, there's not a moment that goes by where I don't think about what happened that night. I know what I did was very wrong, and I regret greatly what I did. You have my greatest sympathy for what happened, and I hope one day you can find in your hearts to forgive me. Your Honor, I know what I did was very wrong, and I'm ready to pay my debt for what I did.
Mr. Henderson, you drove the vehicle that took Matthew Shepard to his death. You bound him to that fence in order that he might be more savagely beaten, in order that he might not escape to tell its tale. You left him out there for 18 hours, knowing full well he was there, perhaps having an opportunity to save his life, and you did nothing. Mr. Henderson, this court does not believe you really feel any true remorse in your part in this matter, and I wonder whether you fully realize the gravity in what you've done. The court finds it appropriate, therefore, that the sentence be ordered as follows. As of count 3, that being felony murder with robbery, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for that term of your natural life. As for count 1, kidnapping, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for that term of your natural life. Sentencing to count 1 is to run consecutive as to sentencing to count 3.
After the hearing, we spoke with Russell Henderson's Mormon home teacher. I've known Russell's family for 38 years, and Russell's only 21, so I've known him his entire life. I ordained Russell a priest of the Mormon Church. So when this happened, you can imagine disbelief. After the sentencing, the church had a disciplinary council, and the result of that meeting was that Russell was to be excommunicated from the church. And what that means is that your name is taken off church records, so you just disappear. Russell's reaction to that was not positive. It hurt him, and it hurt him too to realize at this point how serious a transgression he had committed. But I would not desert Russell. That's a matter of my religion and my friendship with the family.
On our next trip to Laramie, we spoke with Rebecca Hilliker at the theater department. She is producing Angels in America this year at the university.
I think that's the focus the university has taken. That we have a lot of work to do. That we have an obligation to find ways to reach our students. And the question is, how do we move? How do we reach a whole state that has some really deep-seated hostility toward gays? How do we reach them? This is the beginning. And guess who's auditioning for the lead?
My parents.
Jedediah Schultz.
My parents are like, so what plays are you doing this year in school? And I tell them Angels in America. I gave them the whole list of plays. And my mom goes, Angels in America. Is that scene you did in high school? And I go, yeah. And she goes, you thinking of auditioning for it? And I go, yeah. And we got into this huge argument. And the best thing I knew I had on her was, it was just after she had seen me in this performance of Macbeth, right? And like, I killed these two little kids on stage, and Lady Macduff, and this other guy. And she goes, you know homosexuality is a sin? She just kept saying that. She goes, you know it's a sin, right? And I go, Mom, I just played a murderer on stage tonight, and you didn't seem to have a problem with that. I tell you, I've never prepared this much for an audition before in my life. Not ever, not even close.
Now I'm to deal that much with the gay society here in Laramie.
Detective Sergeant Rob DeBree.
Well, once we started working into the case and actually speaking to the people that were gay and finding out what their underlying fears were, well then it sort of hit home. This is America. You don't have the right to feel that fear. And we're still going to have people who hold on with the old ideals, and I was probably one of them 14 months ago. I'm not going to put up with it, I'm not going to listen to it. And if they don't like my views on it, fine. The door goes both ways. I've already lost a couple buddies. I don't care. I feel more comfortable and I can sleep at night.
Well, you know, you can see every 3 months.
Reggie Flutie.
And I was able to get the DNA test done. So they got me to Fort Collins, drew the blood there, flew to Michigan, and they got the DNA work done, which was, I knew I was negative for good. I'll tell you, we were all on our knees saying Hail Mary. You're just a lady, you know, and you think, thank God. So what's the first thing she does? I stuck my tongue right in my husband's mouth. Yeah, I was just happy, you know, you're just so happy and you think, you know, I hope I did this service well. I hope I did it with some sort of integrity. And so you're just really happy, and God, my daughters bawled. They were so happy. And the force. Oh boy. We went out and got shit-faced, and they all bought me drinks too. It was great. And you know, I kissed everybody who walked through that door.
Reggie, they didn't need to know that.
And you know, I didn't care if they were male or female. They each got a kiss on the lips.
That part of what I just said, didn't you understand?
Oh, get over it, Mom.
Almost a year to the day that Matthew Shepard died. The trial for Aaron James McKinney was set to begin.
Probably the question that most of you have on your mind is how the McKinney case will proceed.
Cal Ruccia, prosecuting attorney.
And it's a decision of the county's attorney's office that will definitely be a death penalty case.
Part of me wants McKinney to get it, but I'm not very proud of that. I was on and off and on. Can't say what I really do. I'm too personally involved.
Oh, I believe in the death penalty 100%. You know, because I want to make sure that guy's ass dies. This is one instance where I truly believe with all my heart. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
I don't know about the death penalty, but I don't ever want to see them ever walk out of Rollins Penitentiary. I'll pay my nickel or whatever, my little percentage of tax, a nickel a day to make sure that his ass stays in there and never sees society again, and definitely never comes into my bar again.
I don't believe in the death penalty. It's too much for me. You know, I don't believe that one person should be killed in redemption for someone having killed another. Two wrongs don't make a right.
How can I protest if the shepherds want McKinney dead, you know? I can't interfere with that. But on a personal level, I knew Aaron in grade school. We didn't call him Aaron, we called him AJ. How can we put AJ McKinney? How can we put AJ McKinney to death?
I think right now our most important teachers must be Russell Henderson and Aaron McGivney. They have to be your teachers. How did you learn? What did we, as a society, do to teach you that? See, I don't think many people will let them be our teachers. Though I personally believe it would be incredible if the judge said, in addition to your sentence, you must tell your story. And you must tell your story.
All rise! State of Wyoming versus Aaron James McKinney. Docket number 6381. The Honorable Barton R. Boyd presiding. The court is in session.
During the trial of Aaron McKinney, the prosecution played a taped recording of his confession.
My name is Rob DeBree, Sergeant for the Sheriff's Office. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or may be used against you in a court of law.
The following is an excerpt of that confession.
So you guys, you and Russ go to the fire site. Are you by yourselves at the fire site?
Yeah.
Where do you go after the fire site?
Some kid wanted to ride home.
What do you look like?
Like a queer. Such a queer dude.
He looks like a queer?
Yeah, like a fag, you know?
How did you meet him?
Well, he said he needed to ride home, and I'm like, the kid's obviously drunk, so let's just take him.
So when did you and Russ talk about jacking him up?
I guess we sort of talked about it at the bar.
Okay, what happened next?
So we drove him out past Walmart, right? And this kid puts his hand on my leg and slides it up as if he's gonna grab my genitals. And I'm like, look, man, I'm not a fucking faggot, okay? You touch me again, you're gonna get it. I know what he's trying to do, but I beat him up pretty bad. I think I killed him.
What'd you beat him with?
Blacked out, my fist, my pistol, the butt of the gun. And I had a few beers that night. It's like I could see what was going on, but somebody else was doing it.
What was the first thing that he said or did in the truck that made you hit him first?
Well, he put his hand on my leg and slid it up as if he was gonna grab my balls.
When that defense team argued that McKinney did what he did because Matthew made a pass at him, it made me want to vomit. Because that's like saying it's okay. It's like the Twiggy defense. When that guy killed Harvard Milk and Moscone, it's the same thing.
As much as part of me didn't want their defense of them saying that it was gay bashing or gay panic, part of me was really grateful because I was really scared that in the trial they were going to try and say that it was a robbery or about drugs. So when they used gay panic as their defense, I felt this is good. If nothing else, the truth is going to be told. The truth is coming out.
So did he ever try to defend himself against you or hit you back?
Yeah, it was weak little swings or whatever, but he wasn't very effective.
So how many times did you guys hit him inside the truck before you left him as is?
2 or 3. 3 times with my fist and 6 times with the pistol.
Did he ask you to stop?
Well, yeah, he was getting the shit kicked out of him.
What did he say?
After he asked me to stop, most all he was doing was screaming.
So Russ kind of dragged him over to the fence, I'm assuming, and tied him up?
Yeah, I guess. I just remember Russ was laughing at first, but afterwards he got pretty scared.
Was Matthew conscious when Russ tied him up?
Yeah, I remember telling him to turn around, so I was afraid he was going to read the license plate number and go tell the police. So I asked him what it said, and he read it out. So I hit him a couple more times.
Just to be sure. So you obviously don't like gay people.
No, I don't.
Would you say you hate them?
I don't know that I hate them, but if one of them starts coming on to me, I'm going to get pretty aggravated.
Did he threaten you?
This gay dude?
Yeah.
Not really.
Can you answer me one thing? Why'd you guys take his shoes?
I don't know. I'll never get to see my son again.
I don't know. You'll probably go to court sometime today.
So I'm just going to walk in there, plead guilty or not guilty today?
No. You're going to be arraigned today.
He's going to die for sure?
There's no doubt that Mr. Shepard is going to die.
So what do you think? You're going to give me 25 to life or just the death penalty and get it over with?
That's not our job. That's the judge's job and the jury's.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. We, the jury, impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled case after having well and truly tried the matter, unanimously finds as follows. As to the charge of kidnapping, we find the defendants, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of aggravated robbery, we find the defendants, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of first-degree felony murder kidnapping, we find the defendants, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of first-degree
Aaron McKinney was found guilty of felony murder, which meant the jury could give him the death penalty. That evening, Judy and Dennis Shepard were approached by McKinney's defense team, who pled for their client's life. The prosecution indicated that they would defer to the family's wishes as to whether or not to pursue the death penalty. The following morning, Dennis Shepard made a statement to the court. Here are some of what he said.
My son Matthew did not look like a winner. He was rather uncoordinated and wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life, he proved that he was a winner. On October 6, 1998, my son tried to show the world that he could win again. On October 12, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero lost. On October 12, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero died, just 50 days before his 22nd birthday. I keep wondering the same thing I did when I first saw him in the hospital. What would he have become? How could he have changed his piece of the world to make it better? Matt officially died in a hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. But he actually died on the outskirts of Laramie, tied to a fence. You, Mr. McKinney, and your friend, Mr. Henderson, left him out there by himself. But he wasn't alone. He had lifelong friends with him. Friends he'd grown up with. You're probably wondering who these friends were. Well, first, he had the beautiful night sky and the same stars and moon that we used to see through a telescope. And then he had the sun and the daylight to shine on him. And through it all, he was breathing in the scent of the pines from the snowy range. He felt the wind, the ever-present Wyoming wind for the last time. And he had one more friend with him. He had God. And I feel better knowing that he wasn't alone. Matt's beating, hospitalization, and funeral focused worldwide attention on hate. Good is coming out of evil. I miss my son. But I am proud to be able to say that he is my son. Judy has been quoted as being against the death penalty. It has been stated that Matt was against the death penalty. Both of these statements are wrong. Matt believed that there were some crimes and injustices that justified the death penalty. I too believe in the death penalty. I would like nothing more than to see you die, Mr. McKinney. But now is the time to begin the healing process, to show mercy to someone who refused to show any mercy. Mr. McKinney, I am going to grant you life, as hard as it is for me to do so, because of Matthew. Anytime you celebrate Christmas, a birthday, the 4th of July, remember that Matt isn't. Every time you wake up in your prison cell, remember that you had the opportunity and the ability to stop your actions that night. You robbed me of something very precious, and I will never forgive you for that. Mr. McKinney, I grant you life in the memory of one who no longer lives. May you have a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it. Thank you.
Me and Debris hugged and cried. And you know, everybody had tears in their eyes, and you're so thankful. You know, and Mr. Shepard started crying, and I started bawling, and everybody just...
This is all we've lived and breathed for a year, daily. This has been our case daily, and now it's over.
Maybe now we can go on and we can quit being stuck, you know?
It had just hit me the minute I got out of the courthouse that the reason that God wanted me to find him was so he didn't have to die out there alone. Because if I wouldn't have come along, they probably would have found him for a couple weeks. So it makes me feel really good that he didn't have to die out there alone.
I'm just glad it's over. I really am, you know. Testifying in that trial was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life. And don't get me wrong, I love this stage, I really do, I love it, but it's tricky because basically what you have is you have lawyers questioning you from this angle, but the answers need to be funneling this way to the jury. So what you have to do is you have to establish a funneling system. And well, that's hard for me because I'm a natural conversationalist, so you know it's instinct that when someone looks at you to make a question, you look at that person to make eye contact. But it's kind of tough when you literally have to scoot over, change your position, and in effect, funnel your way over to the jury. But, you know, I was able to do that several times over the course of my testimony.
On our last trip, I had the good fortune of seeing Jedediah Schultz play the role of Pryor in Angels in America. After a performance, we spoke. I didn't, for the longest time, let myself get personally involved with the whole Matthew Shepard thing. It didn't seem real. It was just way blown out of proportion. Matthew was a name instead of an individual. I don't know, it's weird. It's just so weird, man. I just feel bad, you know, for the stuff I told you. That's why I want to go back into those interviews from last year. I don't know. I just can't believe I ever said that stuff about homosexuals. You know, how did I ever let that stuff make me think you were different from me?
This is Romaine Patterson.
Well, a year ago, I wanted to be a rock star. That was my goal. And now,
Now it's obviously changed in the fact that throughout the last year, I've really realized my role in taking my part. So instead of going to school to be music, I'm gonna go to school for communications and political science because I have a career in political activism. Actually, I just recently found out that I was going to be honored in Washington, D.C. for the Anti-Defamation League. And whenever I think about my angels or any of the speaking that I've done, it's like Matthew gave me. Matthew's like guiding this little path with his little light for me to walk down. And he just, every time we get to like a door, he opens it and he says, okay, next step. And if I get to be a rock star on the side, okay.
This is Jonas Slonaker.
Change is not an easy thing, and I don't think the people are up to it here. They got what they wanted. Those two boys got what they deserved, and we look good now. Justice has been served. The OK Corral, we shot down the villains, we sent the prostitutes down onto the train, the town's cleaned up, and we don't gotta talk about it anymore. You know, it's been a year since Matthew Shepard died, and nobody has passed shit in Wyoming. At a state level, any town, anywhere, nobody has passed any kind of laws. Anti-discrimination laws or hate crime legislation. Nobody has passed anything or anywhere. I mean, what's come out of it? What's come out of this that's concrete or lasting?
We all said we would meet again. One last time at the fence.
I've been up to that side of my limousine, okay? And I remember to myself, that night me and him drove around together. He said to me, Laramie sparkles, doesn't it? And right up there where he was, up there, Laramie sparkles with a low-lying cloud. It's the blue lights that's bouncing from the clouds from the airport, and it just goes right over the whole city. I mean, it blows you away. Matt was right up there by himself, and I can just picture in his eyes. I can just picture what he was seeing. The last thing he saw on Earth was the sparkling lights.
We've spent the last 2 days packing a year's worth of materials and saying our goodbyes. We've been here 6 times and conducted over 200 interviews. Jedediah cried when he said goodbye.
Marge wished us luck. And when we asked how Laramie would feel seeing a play about itself, she said,
I think we'd enjoy it. To show us off the hellhole of the earth would be nice. That is up to how you betray us. And in turn is up to how Laramie behaves.
And as we were getting off the phone, she had said to me,
Now you take care. I love you, honey.
Doc asked me if I wanted to ghostwrite a book about the whole event. Galloway offered me, or anyone else, a place to stay if and when we come back to Laramie. He also seemed interested as to whether or not there'd be any open auditions for this play.
We left Laramie around 7 in the evening. On the way to Denver, I looked in my rearview mirror to take one last look at the town.
And I will speak with you. And I will trust that if you had a play of this, that you say it right. You have a responsibility to say it correct.
And in the distance, I could see the sparkling lights of Laramie, Wyoming.